Hi, Jason Wells with Anti-Suit Entrepreneur. And I'm just going to tell a quick story here before I get into the subject, and that will lead you into why I even thought about this subject for this week. So I was working out at the gym, and I was making my way around the circuit that I had made for myself, and a young man and I converged on a machine, which is funny that I'm saying young man. That must mean I'm getting old. Anyways, I let him do his set, and I jumped on and did mine. We worked through our sets. While doing that, we talked. What started the conversation was I looked at his shirt and I saw he had Chico State on the shirt, so I asked him, "Did you go to Chico?" Because I'm Chico State alumni. So he said yes. He attended Chico, got a degree in communications. And this was like the nice young man that you would meet, got a college degree, worked hard. His name was Maurice. And basically what he shared with me was that he was actually working at the gym on the side, but was trying to find the job that he went to school for. And he discussed how his skills with media, graphic design, and communications were not enough for employers. And they'd say things like, well, we need more experience, which kind of bugged him. He's like, well, that's why I went to college, was to pay my dues so I could even get that entry-level job to get experience. And he had mentioned that he's $30,000 in debt and was frustrated that he got in debt for school, got his degree, and wasn't able to get a job. And look, I know there's a lot of people out there, maybe they're jerks or whatever. I mean, this was a nice guy. Like, this wasn't somebody that people aren't going to hire. There just aren't a lot of jobs out there. And communications is a pretty well-rounded degree. I mean, it's almost in some ways a business degree. So, if somebody's looking for a job, I mean, there should be something for that person with that type of education. I just think Maurice is a perfect example of what's wrong with our school system, at least in America. And schools become big business, in my opinion. And many people, if you look at most people, their estimate is that school's the next big bubble, including Chris and I. I mean, we really feel like, everyone thinks about the stock market bubbles and the real estate bubble that we recently went through and are still recovering from. You just think about it, you got this guy who's $30K in debt, but I know lots of people that are over $100K, even $200K in debt, some $300,000 in debt. So a lot of those people can't get jobs. And we're not talking about people who have like crappy degrees that aren't transferable to jobs. I know a ton of people who have over 100 grand in debt from law school and can't find work. I mean, how stupid is that? It's just like, why are we churning out all these college graduates if there aren't any jobs for them? So I know there are a ton of arguments. People, they chose their path and they're going to pay for it and all those things. But that's too easy for us to use it as a cop-out, to, just blame them for their, quote, poor choice. The fact is, these days, schools are no better than a lot of the unethical marketers that you may see out there. We actually talk about in our book, in chapter 1, we talk about, stay away from the 50K a month, from 50K a year in 90 days garbage, all those people that sell the get-rich-quick stuff. Well, I don't think schools are any better. Schools are promising kids, you got to go to college to get a good job, and if you get a degree here, we've got great connections to recruiters that can get you a job. I mean, they're doing the sales pitch. They're selling the dream. And it's happening more and more, and you might be asking, well, why is that? Especially when a lot of schools are public. Because it's big business, even public schools. These administrators need to crank the money. They need to bring it in order to keep their school at the standard that they want. And in a lot of cases, these schools are for profit. So you have to just look at this differently. They talk a lot about go to school, get a degree, and you'll get a good job. Here's the truth. Go to school, get a degree, and you'll get a job. Maybe, maybe not. That's the truth. And they're not saying that. Like, you can bet your bottom dollar when they're selling the education, they're not saying you might not get a job. And that's what's going on. And look, I'm not advocating that people don't go to college. I'm not one of those guys. Like, I'm a highly educated person, for better, for worse. I have degrees in accounting and finance, and I have a doctorate in law. So it's not like I'm somebody that has some chip on my shoulder because I don't have a degree, and so I hate college. So I'm just, oh, college all sucks. I'm not one of those people. But I definitely see an alarming trend, and I'll get into that trend in a second, but I just want you to look at college hard. Look at what they're teaching, or better yet, what they're not teaching, and why they're charging so much, and why so many of those people aren't getting jobs. Everything in this situation screams bubble to me. So, what happens on that subject of bubble? What happens when all of these college graduates keep incurring debt year after year? More and more are unemployed or underemployed, which underemployed is often not a figure in the economy that gets talked about a lot. But you can't have people that are 200-300 grand in debt from college who can't pay that debt. Like, it's bad enough when people have that kind of debt in a home and they can't pay it, but at least they have a home to show for it. We're talking about people that have a degree and they have nothing to show for it other than an education that's supposed to get them a job. And if they don't have the job, how much value is in having that debt? You kind of see my point here. So you got all these people that are underemployed that can't pay that debt because they've got crappy jobs, not the job they expected to get with that kind of debt in education. And this keeps happening. More debt, more graduates hitting the job market year after year, more and more. This happens over and over and over again till the people start piling up. We got all these college graduates with no job, or they're underemployed. I mean, we keep doing this. Where is this going to go? I mean, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist and alarmist, because I'm certainly not. I consider myself a pretty positive person. But to me, this just seems like common sense. Like, it doesn't make any sense that people are paying more and more. Now, here's the funny thing. Maurice went to Chico probably 10 years after I did, maybe a little more. My debt was $10,000. Actually, I didn't have debt. I paid it as I went. But my education cost was $10,000. And that's because I screwed around in junior college for 5 years and changed my major 4 times. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. His debt was $30,000, which by today's standards is nothing. But it's still 3 times as much for the same education. Why is that? That's my question to people. Now, going forward, I just think we really need to take a hard look at education. And this is why, and where I segue into our book, I just think more and more people need to really consider entrepreneurship. And the entrepreneurial ethos, one of the areas in the anti-suit entrepreneur, one of the things, that's, whether you decide to get a job, go to college, get a job, do all that stuff, you got to have that ethos on the side. You got to be thinking more like an entrepreneur, even if you're going to work for somebody. You can't keep relying on the government, the school system, and other people and your employer to make sure that you're taken care of. Because the writing's already on the wall for these 20-year-olds right now. Their 30-year-olds had some issues getting jobs. The 20-year-olds, it's even harder. And it's not just this economy right now that it's part of the problem. There's no doubt. I know what you're thinking. Well, we'd have a lot more people in jobs right now if we had a better economy. Would we, though? Because think about it. Even if these people had jobs, they are not going to be paid at a level that compensates them for what they spent on school. Not when you figure that Maurice has spent 3 times what I spent, okay? And not when you consider that, and he doesn't have much in debt compared to most people. A lot of people with what 15 years ago was a decent paying middle class job out of college are really underemployed by today's standards when you look at what their school loans are and their debt is. So this is something you have to think about. So I just want to raise this with people. I want you to think about it. I want you to look at it, because I really feel like this is the next bubble unless something changes. Unless, I don't know, we spend less money on defense in our budget and our government starts covering some of this stuff. But we as taxpayers are already paying for this because we are the ones who are loaning a lot of this money to these students. And for me personally, and I'm a pretty fiscally conservative person, I don't mind giving those loans if it helps people get a leg up and it helps their overall economy. But it's not going to be fun if they start defaulting on these loans because they can't pay it. We're not talking about a bunch of lazy people here. We're talking about people that just are really trying, like Maurice. They're trying, but they can't get a job. And at some point, they gotta pay that loan. And if they don't have the money to pay the loan, who's gonna pay it? It's gonna be us. So, anyways, I'll leave you with that. Think it's an interesting issue. Made me really think of it when I was talking to him at the gym. It's funny who you meet when you're out and about, and it's funny how a shirt, Chico State, can lead to this whole discussion, isn't it? Have a great week.